Woman, you are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer. The priest is...
Welcome to the Woman Arising podcast, hosted by Kathy Hartenstein and Zeppi Devi, where we elevate and celebrate inspiring women on the rise. In this podcast, we talk to women from all walks of life about their soul's journey, the obstacles they overcame, and how they embody their feminine power. We hope to elevate women's place in the world, showcase their contributions, and provide inspiration for all women to rise to their fullest potential. Today, our guest is Shana Gold, a coach, teacher, and facilitator who has helped hundreds of people to use their voices for deep healing work. Her approach is based on the belief that most of us have distress patterns that make us feel unsafe to be seen, heard, and understood authentically. Shana designs programs to help her clients use the power of their voices to resolve those distress patterns, express themselves with power and presence, and enjoy better results in every area of life. In addition to her 20 years as a theater artist and practicing communication coach and an MFA in theater and communications, she is certified by the Transform Coaching Academy and the International Coaching Federation and is a positive intelligence and mindfulness-based stress reduction practitioner. Shana is passionate about helping her clients to cultivate ease and flow, transform stress into creative intensity, and use their voices to speak their truth. Welcome, Shana. It's our true pleasure to have you here today. We are excited to learn about the many facets of your work and how you've inspired, empowered, and helped women discover their voices.
Thank you, Kathy and Zeppi. It's great to be here.
Welcome, Shana. Welcome. Thank you for being part of this beautiful place that we're starting in this world for the women, because, you're a big part of it. So thank you for taking the time with us. So my first question is, when you first heard Women Arising as a term, as an idea, or as a concept, what does it felt to you? What kind of feelings you brought up? What kind of, emotions maybe, or what kind of visualization? How did you see this thing called Women Arising?
The concept of women arising really conjures for me a phoenix arising from the flame. And that's something we as women have had to do for centuries, after the destruction of so many powerful women that were burned as witches, a real female genocide. That we survived that, and surviving childbirth, surviving oppression, surviving so many things, and now just the everyday struggles of of living within patriarchy. That's our wallpaper and the oxygen we breathe, and really being able to find our voice in that environment is really like the phoenix who has to keep coming back after destruction and reforming herself and arise more powerful than ever from the flame.
I agree with you. And I think it's time for us focusing now. It seems like we need to rise one more time for what's going on out there, because women are still being persecuted. Women are still trying to be less than, they're making us less than. So I feel like what you said is amazing, because we kind of continue. We have to continue, break through all those obstacles and all those things. It hasn't stopped yet. So I agree with you.
They still want us to not have autonomy over our own bodies. They still
Yes.
want us to not be able to choose whether or not we have children. They want to, make us truly feel less than in every way. You're accurate in that. And so to keep our center and to not be knocked off of it by all of that is incredibly challenging. And it's something we're uniquely equipped to do because we're so resilient.
I agree. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
I love the thought of resilience, and I think you are really great with that word, on. I've known you for a very long time. And so you taught me about that. And I know you help a lot of people with that. And, I love this idea of that phoenix rising from all of this and like that way in which we are empowered. And, you and I, we've had a lot of similar journeys, but you have so many different things that you are interested in, and you have this elegance of how you put them all together in the work that you do. And I find that just so exciting and inspiring. And I'd love for you to share with us a little bit about your life's journey and kind of how you got to where you are today and how you became, who you are in this journey. Because I know there's so many interesting stories along that path.
Well, I won't bore you with my whole life story, but yes, we've been in it together for a long time and really been companions in the journey to becoming more resilient and coming from a long line ancestrally, I think of anxious people and really transforming that into, as you mentioned in my bio, creative intensity has been my mission for myself and for my clients and the people I work with. Thinking about what it means to not be run by that anxious energy that we come by so honestly, both through our ancestry and through our direct lived experience. And then, it's a pretty anxiety producing world we're in. So to be able to transform that energy and not be in resistance to it, I think what I know what I did for the really long time as a theater director in particular was suppress it. So I was highly functional. I was great in a crisis. I can handle anything. I was always getting the feedback. You're so patient. You have so much grace. You're so much poise. And I'd be like, wow, inside is a war that you are not seeing because I'm covering it so um, adeptly, I guess. And also having an acting background in her. Um, but there's a consequence to living a life where you're not being completely authentic. And it came out in my body. All of those suppressed emotions from my very challenging childhood to all the other things I've mentioned, and then the stress of how the show must go on. It doesn't matter that half the cast has the flu, including your stage manager. You have to perform. It doesn't matter that the New York Times is tomorrow. Get that understudy on their feet. And the feeling of life or death, survival, that is a huge part of that industry, really wreaked havoc on my psyche and on my physical, emotional, mental well-being. And so I had a lot of health issues. I've had um, chronic nerve issues in my back and migraines and endometriosis, all of which, through my research, I've discovered are connected to inflammatory issues, and inflammatory issues are connected to how we store stress in our bodies. So, especially that area, the reproductive area, is where we women hold our stress in the hips and reproductive organs. So, um, for a long time, I just would be like, why can't I be healthy? And it really took me a while to understand that there is a good reason why. And it's not about beating ourselves up or feeling victimized or saying I've done something wrong or I'm to blame. Just understanding that there's a consequence for holding that in our bodies. And my friend Kathy Washburn has done a lot of research and shared with me about what is the type C behavior. And type C is somebody, usually women, who are so accommodating and put other people's needs before their own, at their own expense, and do that enough and over time that it's second nature to the extent that we don't know we're doing it, and we might not even know that we're putting our needs aside. We just intuit what other people want us to think, feel, and say, and we do it. And As a result, that gets stored in our bodies and leads to a increase in the risk of cancer. And I recently had a cancerous or precancerous lumpectomy. And that was a big moment for me, a big wake up call. When I heard about that type C, I said, well, I knew I had these tendencies and I knew it was affecting my health, but now I have a chance to stop this in its tracks. And I'm not going to do it from a place of fear. I'm going to do it from a place of appreciation of the opportunity to make the changes I need to stay healthy. And so that really redoubled my efforts to do that for myself and so that I can model that for the people I teach and work with.
I absolutely love all of that insight because so often I think as women, we are those type Cs where we're trying to please everybody or we're put in these situations where we have to prove ourselves sometimes. And, being a theater director like you, it is true. Like women, we're still paving a way there. And so you do maybe put a lot of that extra stress and then how it manifests in our lives can be extremely challenging. So I've kind of two follow-up questions for you here. What brought you to some of the work? Was it some of these things in particular? Was it, um, you know, some of the passions that you had? And then, you started to discuss some of these obstacles and how you overcame them. Along the way, what were some of those shaping and defining moments for you?
Well, I'm incredibly fortunate in that when I was in college, I had a professor, a theater professor, who saw I was already having health struggles even that back then. And she could intuit that while everybody else thought I was the happiest person they ever met, that there was tension. And she suggested that I work with um, an energy work that she knew. And that energy worker introduced me to the Course in Miracles. And so I got started on that quite young. That idea that we have a choice as to how we respond to something, that was sort of radical to me. And that love conquers fear. So that was the first step in that direction to have, a quote unquote therapist who worked with energy and worked with those concepts for the 90s. That was fairly forward thinking. So I feel so lucky that I had that. And when I tell people about some of the issues that I had growing up and some of the traumas that I recovered from, they're like, "This is kind of amazing. You just seem like this normal, healthy, high functioning person." I'm like, A, yes, I am high functioning. B, the health issues are where it manifests for me. If I hadn't had those interventions when I did, who knows?
Right.
You know, the fact that I have so many healthy relationships in my life. I met my husband, John, who's also a good friend of Kathy's, who's quite the mensch, as everyone who knows him agrees. I didn't end up in a dysfunctional relationship after having a very dysfunctional childhood. I do think it's is in many ways owed to the fact that I got that intervention from a very young age. And then after that, um, Kathy, I don't know if you remember this, but you took me to a wonderful woman in Sedona. And she said something to me that really stopped me in my tracks and forced me to really reevaluate, which was she said, "You are like a beautiful figure skater who is skating on very thin ice.
Mm,
And it's bringing all of this tension because you feel that you're going to fall through the cracks and drown at any moment."
Mm.
And I realized that she was right. This neck tension that I was always like in so much pain and causing these big headaches and, just the amount of tension I was holding to keep myself from falling apart was having such an impact on my emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. And she said, "Your mission is to pay attention to your emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual well-being every day. Because what I was doing was treating myself horribly when I was in rehearsals. And then I would come out and I would go on some great retreat. I would go to Kripalu, or I would take care of myself in some really amazing way. And she was saying, that's not enough. This has to be a daily practice. Now you throw in the fact that I have ADHD, and daily routines and practices are not my forte. So it has taken me a really long time to figure out how to do that for myself and actually get diagnosed as having adult ADHD. So that's a whole other story, but that has made a really big difference in my ability to take care of myself and actually attend to myself and my needs on a regular basis. So that was really impactful. And then I got completely burnt out in the theater, and I was like, wow, this has been my identity my entire life, pretty much since I was 6. A theater person was who I was. To not be a theater person is kind of shattering. And also, as we all know, those dark nights of the soul are what lead to the biggest spiritual shifts. And so, who am I if I'm not a theater person? It's been a really big question, and it has been really important to me to realize that who I am is a healer. And I'm still a theater person. I still love storytelling. I still teach people how to tell their story and use their voice, which is what the theater is all about, and how to touch an audience and move people and inspire people is still a huge part of what I do. And I don't have to be working towards opening night like a maniac. And then joining the Transform Coaching Academy program with Eve Agee and going through that process and working with Eve as a coach, I learned so much about myself and about how I wanted to work with my clients in a way that wasn't just about how they look and sound, but about how they feel, working from the inside out to find real presence, to have access to your truth. How do you speak your truth if you don't know how you feel? Right? So being able to actually get present and authentic with oneself is the first foundational step to being able to be expressive of who we are and share our story. And that's what I do for women is help them find their voice and tell their story, speak their truths, ask for and get what they need. So merging together Transform coaching approach with my theater approach. And then I got into positive intelligence and got my certification there, which is about working with the saboteur. And people who are familiar with Jungian theory might think of it as the shadow. And like, what are those survival-based saboteurs that make us feel like we're not going to survive if somebody doesn't approve of us? And cultivating the sage response and the sage perspective, which is that if we bring curiosity and compassion to ourselves and to others, and our fierce clarity to everything we do, then anything that happens will make something positive out of it. We'll find a gift, we'll find growth, opportunity for learning. And that means we don't have to be so tight all the time when we know that that's true. So that's had a really big impact on me and my clients, because when they're preparing for a high stakes communication or a presentation or a keynote or asking for a raise or making a request or a demand in a relationship, in a personal relationship, or even just telling the waiter that you don't like your food, or the hairdresser you don't like your hair, from the tiniest micro things to the hugest life decisions, being able to understand that your survival isn't at stake if someone feels a little upset with you or a lot upset with you, that your worth is never on the line. That's probably been the most radical shift for me and for my clients, to be able to really get present and function and really ride those waves of the stress.
I absolutely love that. And I think authenticity is such an essential component to happiness and fulfillment and being really present in the world. And so helping people to really claim that authenticity and find their voice inside of that is that perfect combination. And I will say, having worked with Shauna in many aspects, she's a master at it. So it's really wonderful. My next question for you is, and I know because of us sharing this past history a little bit, but the idea that as a woman, we're a lot of times marginalized in the world. In some of the healing arts, I think as women, we don't experience it quite as much. But I think in the theater world, I think it is challenging to be a female director and finding our way. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about, as a woman, what were some of the things that maybe you had to overcome and kind of how you kept hold of that feminine power as you, dealt with, sort of that patriarchal society?
Well, it's a great question because I think that my struggle to hold on to my power authentically and really access my power authentically and not be afraid of people's reaction to my expression of my power is a big reason why I burnt out. In addition to the inhumane schedule that's asked for and the demands of the theater, is as a woman in the lead, you will have a lot of collaborators who maybe you didn't pick. You get hired and they are just given to you and they didn't pick you either. And so you have to make the best of it. And as a pleaser, that's one of my saboteurs in positive intelligence. My identity would sometimes be attached to making sure everyone really liked me and thought I was the best. And I was so fun and that they just had so much fun. I want everyone to have fun. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to have fun. That can absolutely be a sage activation. And my need for it was survival based. I felt like I needed to survive. So if I made a request or a demand of somebody on my artistic team, sometimes, particularly men, but sometimes women have internalized sexism too. They did not like hearing that from them. They project their mother issues onto you or whatever they have going on, with authority, and they get very resentful. And it was mostly men in that situation. And so then I would get angry. But rather than expressing my anger in authenticity or even accessing it honestly, sometimes I would just go into victim, which is another saboteur, and resentment. And then I would get double nice. Oh, you don't like what I'm doing or saying, so I'm going to be super nice and super understanding and just try to get it from you that way. And then I might go to somebody else and say, I was so nice and he was such a jerk. I did everything right. I couldn't have been nicer. I can't believe that he responded that way. And what I realize now that I learned from this wonderful book called Unbound by Kasia Urbaniak, which I highly recommend, is that I was functioning from a place of incongruence, not authenticity. I was feeling resentment, fear, anger, frustration, and acting nice. Of course, that didn't go well. No surprise. Even if every word I said was perfect, if the energy that I brought to the interaction was telling a different story, that creates incongruence. People's mirror neurons pick up on it. The mirror neurons are what make us yawn when somebody else yawns. We feel people's vibes, thoughts, and energy, whether they say them or not.
Yeah.
And so a big part of what I do in my coaching is help people understand that the energy we bring is just as important as anything we say, if not more.
I think that's really true.
And so that incongruence created a lot of dissonance, a lot of frustration, and a lot of burnout. So to say that I managed to, I think maybe from the outside people thought that I managed it well, But I don't think I did, honestly. I really struggled with how to be in a position of power when people didn't want me there. When they did, I was great. I didn't have any problem being in the lead. I enjoyed it. But the second there was any pushback, I had a really hard time figuring out and it's not my fault and it's not our fault. Something she talks about a lot in Unbound is what she calls the smush. It's being between a rock and a hard place, which is that we are meant to be independent women and not need any help and be strong and career women and work and be mothers and we're also meant to be super nice and accommodating and be pretty and pleasing. So you can't be both those things at the same time. You have to sometimes be displeasing when you're being strong and setting a boundary or making a request or making a demand. And our being between a rock and a hard place is imposed on us by the patriarchy. And we don't have to stay in that smush. We have the skills, we have the resource to say, I decide that it's okay if people aren't pleased with us. And I can bring what in positive intelligence we call the sage energy to our authority and power.
Mm.
Because otherwise, what happens is we swing between trying to be nice and liked and then getting pushed to our breaking point and then unleashing hell. And we've all probably done it. We've all probably received it. And it's not ideal. It happens. We should be hard on ourselves about it. And it requires some repair. Ideally, rather than being pushed to our breaking point, if we can say, it's okay if not everybody likes me. My worth is not affected by that. I know of my worth and I can get my love and approval from appropriate places. I don't need to get it from every single person I work with or from the world or the public. And I can lovingly, caringly, curiously, sagely say, this is how it is. And even if you're not happy, I'm okay.
Exactly. And that's really powerful because how can we say to people, if you're not happy, I'm okay? We're not taught that, correct? And that's part of our kind of, we have to hide that part of ourselves. And it's kind of like, you feel like, how do I say the word? Like you feel like if you don't say that you're happy or if you don't please them, they put all this stuff on you. And in that sense, I feel like we lose our feminine self also, or somehow within the process, we can discover it, both things exist. So I was just wondering, how can you define your feminine self? And when did you feel like you were able to discover yourself or lost it through this process? Because I think both of them are, very valid. We can find it or lose it.
Yeah. So, the divine feminine, the divine masculine both live in us. We have that yin and yang. And I have resisted calling it masculine feminine for a long time because I didn't like the idea that one was more who we are. And I've always been perceived as very feminine. And I think that that's not a good thing or a bad thing. That's just how it is. And what's interesting, when I say always, is not exactly accurate. I was a tomboy when I was little. So, it's interesting that I went from picking up frogs and worms and refusing to wear a dress. And I wouldn't dress up as a princess for Halloween. I would only be scary because I was sure that that's what Halloween was all about. And everyone was misinterpreting Halloween when they wore princess costumes. And I had a lot of friends. My best friend was a boy when I was in elementary school. And then, like so many, in the book Reviving Ophelia, she talks about when we hit puberty, we hit those middle years, is when we often lose our tomboy and start to really get that sense of insecurity about how we're seen. And So I don't think it's a negative or a positive, but I like the idea of recapturing some of that, like adventurousness and curiosity. And something Reshma Sajani said in her TED Talk, she runs Girls Who Code, and she said, when boys come to her and say, if this isn't working, there's something wrong with my code. And when the girls come, they say, this isn't working, there's something wrong with me.
Mm.
So boys are trained to be brave and girls are trained to be perfect.
Yes.
So that's the piece of femininity that's defined by the oppression. And so coming out of that piece of the femininity and really embracing the quote unquote masculine in terms of the power. Now, the positive side is that even though I'm not a mother, I'm a childless cat lady, as JD Vance would define it. But my healing, I do believe, comes from my divine feminine, that, I really just naturally, this is authentically who I am. I have an affection for pretty much everyone and proven otherwise. My go-to is to feel warm care and affection for everyone and to direct that out. And then because of the wounds, if I get any kind of negativity in response, then the wall will go up. That I work with using all of my resources, and or it, can turn in on itself. But I do feel that my divine feminine springs from my real and authentic love of nurturance of myself and others.
Yeah, that's amazing. So the process you discovered your feminine self between being a tomboy and, growing up to be feminine and everybody's calling you, very, very sensitive and feminine. What kind of advice can you give to the young women that go through this process right now? That trying to figure out who they are as business women or as models, for example, the two opposite, how would you where would you tell them? What do you advise them?
Well, what I know I just gave a talk to 250 women on this topic. And so the big thing that I believe we as women need to do is pursue hearing no and being okay with it. Because our fear of rejection, which is a human survival response, everyone,
Mhm.
women in particular, are not trained to be comfortable with it. Hearing no and knowing we're okay, being brave, facing rejection, and actually going after it. So what I advise everyone to do is pick something small that you'd like to do and actually pursue rejection, because you have to get 20 no's to get to your yes. So get those 20 no's, go after it. What we do is we go after yes, and anything else is failure, because we have to be perfect, because that's how we're trained by society. And what I encourage everyone to do is go after no, go after, try to be rejected so that we can start to inoculate ourselves to it. So it's not such a big deal. And then we don't have to be skating on thin ice all the time. If we're not so terrified of rejection, then that ice that we're skating on is nice and solid. And we can then start to do some really amazing leaps and be really beautiful and, wow ourselves in the world. We don't have to be so tense and so afraid that we're going to fall in, because we know we can survive whatever happens.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful because the divine feminine it has proven to be that she can survive no matter what, correct? And and that is what we need to tell the women out there, that they can survive no matter what they go through. The next level is going to come for them and it's going to show them who exactly they are. And also, I want to ask you, how do you take care of your divine feminine? Is any specific work that you do within yourself? Is any specific meditation, or do you take baths with salt? How do you really take care of your divine feminine and that part of yourself?
There's energy routine that Donna Eden created that's the 7-minute energy routine. She used to call it energy medicine, but now they call it the Eden energy method. And it has been so powerful for me, and I do it every single day. And then sometimes I'll add in some tapping, and sometimes I'll add in some affirmations and, saying things like, um, may I be contented and safe. May I be protected and pleased. May my physical body uphold me with strength. May my life unfold smoothly with ease, is my version of the loving kindness prayer. And I say that every single day. And Pema Chodron has a version of it that I love, which is, may I know happiness and the root of happiness. May I be free of suffering and the root of suffering. May we be healed of our ancient wounds. May all beings everywhere awaken and be free. So those two sort of take me, and whenever I go into judgment of myself or anyone else or a situation, I just say those loving kindness mantras and they shift my energy completely, which is different than suppression.
Mhm.
Emotional and nervous system regulation is not the same as suppression. It's about shift, energy shift, where we go into our brains and our bodies, and the accompanying hormones is very different from pushing down and being in avoidance. So that's really the number one thing I can do to really take care of myself, is to shift rather than suppress, and get my nervous system tuned, my vagus nerve toned, and then function from a place of sage, where I really can love myself and love others and love the situation. And in positive intelligence, we call it the sage perspective, which is that no matter what happens in this or in this life, I have the ability to convert it into an opportunity for growth and learning, and there will be a gift. And when I know that, when I start my day with that, then I don't go into the worry spiral that can sometimes happen, that I did my whole life. And I come by honestly through my lineage, and instead go, okay, what are the things that are of concern? How can I bring clarity and care and elegant solutions to it without repeated, draining negative thoughts and worry? I read somewhere, I cannot remember who said it, but they said, worrying is like praying for what you don't want, because what we focus on expands.
Exactly.
Remembering to put my attention on what I would like to manifest rather than what I'm afraid of. And that doesn't mean being an avoidance. It's really about being present with the whole multiplicity of the truth of the situation, having clarity and exploring the reality, while also saying, I am resilient. I'm a survivor. I'm an ariser. I'm a thriver. And whatever happens, I'm going to be okay.
What you're doing is grounding this energy, and as you're saying that, and you feel it, because when you spiral, you kind of leave your body and allow all these negative thoughts to take form. But what you're doing is you're grounding this beautiful, mantras within your body, so the body settles down and it becomes very conscious. So thank you. That was very, very powerful.
Well, I
Thank you
like
for
the way you said that.
sometimes it just I see you and I feel that groundedness, and that's what I wanted to express, because when we just get all like wind up and we stay in the negativity, of course we leave our bodies, correct? We're not there, we're not present, we're not conscious of it. So the more conscious we are, the better it is. And I really enjoy that from you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I just love all the different wisdom bombs you've dropped on us today.
I agree.
And great reminders about some very basic things that we tend to forget, about being authentic, about seeking that no, about really listening to ourselves and um, honoring ourselves. And I think that does really express sort of that path of the divine feminine as well. So I really love how you phrase things. That is one of your amazing strengths, is communication. And with that in mind, can you tell people how they can connect with you and how they can work with you and get some of this beautiful wisdom and transformation that you offer?
Yes, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So please go to my website. It's shanagoldcoaching.com. And Shana is spelled Shana, right? I think it's Shana. You would be the first. So it's shanagoldcoaching.com. And on there, you can read about my offerings and you can sign up for an opportunity to have a clarity call with me where we'll sort of look at what are your goals and what do you want to pursue with how you communicate, how you lead, how you live your life, how you want to pursue your work and your career or your business. And then we'll look at what blocks might be in the way and how to create a path forward for transforming those and living your life and using your voice to get what you want and need.
And I want to say I've worked with Shauna in multiple ways. So, um, when I was working for a company, we hired her to help us with a lot of our public speaking needs. And she was just amazing because it's not just about how you present something, but what are you trying to say and how do you shape your message? And it really helps you shift your perspective on everything. And it's really powerful. And then I've worked with her as a personal coach, and she helped me make big shifts in really short periods of time on things that I'd struggled with for years. So I can't recommend her highly enough. And she's just, like she says, got this great energy that you really want to connect to. So I
The
hope
feeling
you
is
will go.
mutual, my friend. So
I hope
mutual.
you will go to Shana Gold coaching.com and sign up for that clarity call. I think it'll be really worth your time.
And if you'd
But
like to email me, you're welcome to email me at shanagoldcoaching.com.
and we just want to thank you for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. We are
Beautiful
so pleased.
conversation. What a beautiful space you've created. And I love the wisdom you both bring and the beautiful depth of the questions and the inquiry that you bring.
Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
You're amazing.
Thank you for tuning in to Woman Arising, where we celebrate the resilience, wisdom, and power of women on the rise. Remember, when women rise, we all rise. If you're ready to embark on your journey of empowerment, sign up for our mailing list at womenarising.com and join our community of strong, inspiring women. To connect with Zephy Devi and ignite your inner fire, visit zephydevi.com and sign up to get your free tantric meditation. Let Zephy illuminate your path, helping you discover the magic and power that reside within you. To connect with Kathy Hartenstein and claim your spectacularness, visit createmorebliss.com and sign up for a free 30-minute consult call where she can help you break through your emotional blocks to success. Let Kathy be your guide on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Thank you for being a part of the Woman Arising community. Together, let's continue to uplift, inspire, and empower women everywhere. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep embracing the divine feminine power that resides within you.
You are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer.